You already knew something was wrong. You knew it almost immediately. Something felt off from the beginning. Your friends saw it before you did. They told you what they saw. You listened and then went back anyway. You told yourself it was different this time, that you could fix what was broken, that they would eventually change for you. They didn't change. You went back anyway. Not because you're weak, not because you're foolish or blind, because something older than your judgment decided, something built long before you existed. Before language gave you words for feelings, before reason gave you tools for decisions, before any system you used to understand yourself. Something ancient made the choice for you, and it has been making it for longer than you can imagine. In 2010, researcher Arthur Aron at Stony Brook University published findings. That should have changed everything. He had been studying love for 30 years. Not the feeling of love, the neuroscience behind what love actually is. What happens inside the brain when you fall for someone completely? What he found was not romantic. It was clinical and uncomfortable and precise. The brain regions that activate when you fall for someone are the same regions that activate during addiction. Not similar regions, the exact same regions, the dopamine system. The reward pathway, the craving circuit, the compulsion to go back. All of it, identical. Falling in love is neurologically identical to cocaine addiction. Not metaphorically identical, chemically identical, the same neurotransmitters flooding the same pathways. The same brain regions lighting up identically. The same cycle of reward and withdrawal. The same compulsion to go back even when you know it is destroying you, when the person you love is inconsistent. Sometimes warm and sometimes cold, sometimes completely present and sometimes completely gone. The dopamine response does not decrease, it increases dramatically. Unpredictable reward is more addictive than consistent reward, every time without exception. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and it is the most powerful behavioral conditioning mechanism ever documented in the history of psychology. B.F. Skinner documented intermittent reinforcement in 1956. He was working with rats at Harvard. He gave them a lever to press group 1. The lever always produced food. Group 2, the lever sometimes produced food. Sometimes it produced nothing at all. Completely randomly with no predictable pattern, Group 2 pressed the lever obsessively, far more than Group 1 pressed theirs. Even when the food stopped coming entirely, Group 2 kept pressing the lever anyway, long after Group 1 had completely stopped. The uncertainty itself was the addiction, not the food they were trying to reach. The not knowing whether this press would finally be the one that worked. That uncertainty kept them locked to the lever. Apply this directly to the person who is bad for you. Some days they are everything you need, warm and present, and exactly right. Other days they are cold and distant and unreachable. You never know which version you will get today. So you keep trying. You keep going back to the lever because the last time you pressed it, you got the warm version. And maybe this time will be that again. The uncertainty is not a bug in your attraction. It is the engine driving all of it. The inconsistency is what makes walking away feel impossible. Not the person themselves, the pattern they have created inside you, the lever you cannot stop pressing, but intermittent reinforcement is only half the mechanism. The other half is much older. Helen Fisher at Rutgers University spent 30 years studying attachment patterns in humans. She found that humans do not fall for people at random. They fall for people who match a specific internal template, a blueprint built in early childhood, built from the people who were supposed to keep you safe when you were small, the people who sometimes did that and sometimes didn't. The emotional pattern of your earliest relationships becomes the emotional pattern you recognize as familiar. And familiar feels exactly like home. Even when home was not safe, even when home was unpredictable and painful, your brain does not distinguish between familiar and good. It registers familiarity and calls it comfortable. It calls it known. It calls it safe. The person who makes you feel the way you felt at 7 years old, anxious and uncertain and desperate for approval, does not feel dangerous to your brain. They feel like recognition, like finally finding someone who understands you. They do not understand you. They replicate the emotional pattern you learned before you could name emotions, and your brain responds to that replication as if it were love, because it is the closest thing to love. Your earliest experience taught you to recognize. John Bowlby at the Tavistock Institute in London developed attachment theory through the 1950s. He documented how the bond between a child and their earliest caregivers creates a template for every relationship that follows. Secure attachment, caregiver consistently present and responsive, produces adults who find consistency attractive, who feel comfortable with stability and reliability, who do not confuse chaos with passion. Anxious attachment, caregiver inconsistently present, produces adults who find inconsistency familiar, who mistake anxiety and uncertainty for excitement, who read the pull of not knowing as the feeling of being truly alive, who confuse the relief of receiving attention with the safety of being genuinely loved. These are not the same thing, but they feel identical from the inside. Mary Ainsworth extended Bowlby's work through the 1970s. She documented something that changes everything. Children with inconsistent caregivers did not become indifferent. They became more attached than children with consistent caregivers, more focused on obtaining the approval they couldn't reliably get, more desperate for the connection that came and went. The inconsistency amplified the attachment dramatically. It did not reduce it at all. That amplified attachment, the one that forms specifically in uncertainty, becomes the emotional fingerprint the adult brain uses to identify what love feels like. Not calm, not safety, not someone who shows up every time. The pull of someone who might not. The uncertainty of someone you cannot quite reach. The relief when they finally turn toward you. To understand why this pattern exists at all, you have to go back much further than Bowlby and attachment theory, further than any psychological framework ever built. Your ancestors did not choose partners for emotional safety. They chose partners for survival signals, confidence and status within the group, physical capability and social dominance. These signals did not always come from kind people. They came from powerful people, and powerful people in a camp of 30 were not always gentle or consistent or safe, but they were the best bet for survival. For protection during genuine physical danger, for resources when food was genuinely scarce, for children who would inherit enough status to survive in a world that was actually trying to kill them. Natural selection did not optimize for emotional safety. It was optimized for survival advantage, and power was a survival advantage, even when it came packaged in chaos, even when it came at enormous personal cost. The ancestor who chose the kind and stable partner over the dominant and unpredictable one may have had a safer emotional life, but they may have had fewer resources, less protection when it actually mattered, lower status offspring with worse survival odds. The math was brutal, and the math was clear. You inherited the preference that won that calculation, running inside you below your conscious choice, below your stated values and your therapy insights, below what you tell yourself you want, at the level where the ancient system runs. In 2012, researcher Natasha Tidwell at Texas A&M University found something that clarified why knowing this does not fix it. She measured the gap between what people said they wanted and what they actually responded to in real attraction scenarios. People consistently described wanting kindness and reliability and emotional availability, and consistently responded with stronger attraction to intensity and unpredictability. What we say we want and what attracts us are measurably and significantly not the same thing. The difference between them is not a conscious choice. The ancient system responds before the conscious mind has finished forming an opinion about what it sees. Before you know you're attracted, you already are. Before you know it, you're going back. You have decided. The conscious mind arrives after and constructs the reason. They are different this time. This time will be better than before. I can help them become who they could be. These are not reasons. They are the conscious mind trying to explain a decision that was already made 2 floors below, by a system that does not speak in language, that speaks in chemistry and craving and recognition. There is one more finding, the darkest one, the one that closes the entire loop. When you finally leave, when you finally make the break, withdrawal is real and it is clinical. Fisher's neuroimaging research showed that breakups activate the same brain regions as cocaine withdrawal, the craving and the obsessive thinking. The physical discomfort that arrives without warning. The overwhelming compulsion to go back and make it stop. You are not weak for going back. You are withdrawing from something your brain classified as necessary for survival. And it will feel exactly like that until it doesn't, which takes longer than anyone tells you and is harder than anyone who hasn't felt it will ever fully understand.